2.2 has introduced a multitude of new features that have accelerated and evolved the creating community in so many ways. From tons of new triggers to the warp function and pixel blocks, I would argue that this update has single-handedly changed the way that we'll be seeing creating forever. But is that a good thing? You see, this update, while it has done a lot of good, also came with some features that I don't think helped us as much as the community thinks it did. It's actually something that got introduced over 7 years ago in the last update, but I guess we forgot how that went for us. Of course, I'm talking about the new rate system and ratings added to the game. Now, before we get directly into things, I haven't posted much on this channel the last couple of months. I took a bit of a break to make my No Copyright Sounds Gauntlet contest entry, but now that that's gone and over with, I'm gonna be back to making weekly videos on this channel again, alongside streams whenever I'm in the mood. So if you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe. It's free, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the vibes here. But back on topic, to most people, the new ratings just feel like it should be a net positive. And on the surface, I would be inclined to agree with that sentiment. With there only being 4 different types of ratings back in 2.1, those being epic, featured, rated, and nothing, it felt like there was a huge gap in quality between the best and worst epic rated levels in the game. It also felt like there were tons of levels that were worth at least a rate, but weren't getting it because the standard was apparently just like higher than this kind of stuff. It was ridiculous. So naturally, we get 2 new ratings. This gives us a more consistent range of quality throughout the ratings again. The true highest quality levels in the game could be celebrated through this new Mythic rating, and it allowed the quality to be trickled down a little bit, so hopefully more levels could be worthy of that rate status we complained about before. Now, while in concept that actually does do a lot of good, there's a key issue here that actually stops this from ever happening. You. And me. It's actually the entire community. You see, creating is completely subjective. While we can generally agree as a whole that some levels are definitely better than others, there will always be things that I like and you don't, and vice versa, and that creates a lot of problems when it comes to level rates. For example, I personally don't think that any levels made in 2.2 thus far are deserving of the Mythic rating. I think the Mythic rating should be reserved for the absolute peak of creating for the time, things that pushed us forward and influenced the community in a major way. Think like Dreamflower by Zendergame and Knots, or Well Rested by Comet Face. Likewise, I then make all of the current mythics more in line with the legendary rating. Of course, now there will be some overlap, as I do think that some of the current legendaries are rightfully in their place, but you get the idea. Now, this is just my personal opinion. I think it's rather valid, but at the end of the day, no matter how much I believe this is the right way to go, you are totally valid in disagreeing with it. And that's where the problem is. It creates this eternal conversation in the community on whether X level is mythic worthy, describing it like it's something that matters at all, and it's some objective level of quality that we can determine, which doesn't really make any sense when you think about it. So because of this, lately the community has devolved into this dash to create a mythic level, or whatever that means. But it's not nearly that simple, and I can give you a very clear example of why. All right, so let's look at the No Copyright Sounds Gauntlet that just finished up a couple of weeks ago. We see the top 2 best levels in the entire gauntlet right here. Okay, now we check them in game. Sick. Okay, they got the Mythic rating. This makes sense. All right, so we go to number 3, Magistro, and that one got legendary. All right, so logically, all of the levels below this should at best be legendary because Magistro is better than all of the other entries. Right, it doesn't make sense. Now, this is where the conversation actually gets a bit interesting. About 6 months ago, I made a video talking about why the rate system is the way it is, and detailed the fact that as much pull as we think we have, in the end, it's Robtop's opinion versus the entire community's. He gets to decide what is and isn't any rating. Not Viperin, not the mods, not the community, definitely not you, and definitely not me. Oh my god, that'd be a terrible idea. But sadly, as much as the community is knowledgeable that Robtop is the only person that gets to rate levels, they're not really aware of the consequences of that idea. From my understanding, most people actually think the mod team suggests the ratings for levels based on experienced critiques and their knowledge of the game, or maybe some system conjured up in the mod team rules, or maybe community feedback or popular opinion, but no. it tends to be based mainly on their vastly varied personal opinions, in the same way that I have mine and you have yours. And keep in mind, some mods are experienced creators, others are top players, and some hardly even play the game anymore. Which is valid, this is volunteer work at the end of the day, but it does take some of that professionalism out of the sentence when you realize the process is that way a solid chunk of the time. Which, to be clear, I do have problems with the actual functionality of the mod team, but that isn't really the point that I'm making here. The larger issue at hand is that most of you guys don't even know how the mod team is run or why it's run that way, which ends up causing confusion and ends up forcing you to make assumptions. So now, because of this huge lack of communication between the mod team's functionality and the rest of the community, a lot of the new legendary and mythic rates are getting a ton of hate unfairly. And I'll tell you what, if you think that a level doesn't deserve mythic, you're right. You're totally entitled to that opinion. But the fact of the matter is, the man who has the power to click the big rate button sometimes won't have the same opinion as you. And that does suck, I know, but as much as it does, we have to accept that so long as Robtop and the mod team won't change, we as a community can and should exist outside of the standard that he gets to dictate. You see, ratings have subconsciously, if not consciously, changed how we all perceive creations in this game. Think about it like this. Imagine a level, any level, that on release you thought was a pretty solid level, that the creators did a good job on. Not anything groundbreaking, but good. Now the level gets rated and you see it received the new legendary or mythic rating. What's your first thought? I'm gonna take a soul read here and assume that it's, hey, the level was really good, but it's not mythic worthy. Which again, in and of itself is fair. It's your opinion, but with your new understanding of how the rate system works, notice how this is just a destructive and negative thing for the community as a whole, as now you're turning something you felt positively about into a negative conversation for reasons outside of anyone's control. You see, there's a huge difference between putting down a great level because you don't think it's a perfect level, rather than supporting great levels because they're great levels. And I'd wager that the majority of your natural responses to projects is to be positive, but things like jealousy or perceived uniqueness or the rate system can bring out that negativity inside of you where it really wasn't needed. So forget the rating, because in the end, it will never accurately represent your view on all levels, and it is just a little glowing symbol that gives the creators a couple extra numbers next to the wrench on their profile picture. It sounds really silly when I say it like that, doesn't it? I think a lot of the community has forgotten that the most successful aspect of this game, and really any long-term game, is that the community thrives off of being creative and simply having fun. Besides, creating levels that even belong in this conversation are a result of quite literally years of practice, research, and hard work from the people involved. To perform at such a high caliber isn't an easy task, and if I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys, from a person that's been in some of those projects, a lot of the time it is so stressful and takes so much out of you that it takes a lot of the fun out of the game. My best friend Leah, also famously known as GeoGamer12, was crucial in the creation of 2 mythic levels that are both on her account. And you know the craziest part is, she only made them because she just wanted to have fun with her friends. But alongside this came weeks of insanely hard work, sleepless nights, and so much stress that she's most likely taking a backseat from the game entirely. And yet, the amount of people hating on those levels solely because they don't think they deserved a certain rating is kind of ridiculous. So instead of complaining, sending hate comments, or trying to put other people's work down because they got a shinier face than some other level, go enjoy yourself. If we're being honest with ourselves, the new legendary and mythic ratings are among the least helpful new additions we've received in the Goliath that the 2.2 update was. We have so much potential as a community to do so much good and push ourselves so much further than we're currently comfortable with. But with how things are set up, it's pretty clear that most people are more focused on pulling people down who are trying to get us to that next step so eagerly, and it's kind of disappointing to see. So as long as we treat these ratings like they're objective truths or something to use as a catalyst to share our hot takes of negativity, it'll never be a positive thing for us. So I'm gonna reiterate something that I said about 6 months ago in that rate system video I was talking about. Robtop, the mod team, they are a voice that is loud, calls the shots, and speaks on its own, but it doesn't have to speak for the rest of us. The more we distract ourselves with these problems that we can't even control, the more we deteriorate from being an enjoyable core community. There are so many things here that we can actually fix and improve over time, things that can push the game to be better in so many ways for everyone, and it's not even that difficult. So what can we do? Well, the best advice that I can possibly give from person to person is just to not take any of this personally. Robtop and the mod team have pretty consistently made decisions in the past that we as a whole haven't really agreed with. And like I said in my last video, as time goes on, we'll see even more of that happening. So instead of taking each decision personally, let's pick each other up and support just how amazing the creating and playing community has become. From incredibly innovative platformers to boundary pushing at new classic levels, we really should be more proud of how far we've come as a community. I started playing this game in 2015, almost 10 years ago now. And if you told me that we would be this far at any point in the future, I would not have believed you. But there's something more to this, something above all else that I also want to highlight. Putting aside the game itself, this community has brought me and tons of other people some of the most enjoyable times that we could possibly ask for. We are incredibly fortunate to be in the position we are with the state of this game and how much it enables us, not only for our creativity, but our tenacity and connections with the millions of others among us. There's a longer journey to be had here, 100%, and there's a lot of work to be done, but we have to step back and remember sometimes that the only reason that we're all here is for those core memories. So let's spread some positivity. Down in the comments below, let me know what your favorite memory in the entire GD community was. I'm genuinely very interested, but I'm gonna head out for now. I'm ZeroSR, and thanks for watching.